The sound of metal tearing against steel is something you never forget. Especially when it's your combine harvester doing the tearing and a pearl. White BMW is the one screaming against its blades. I sat in the cab frozen, phone in hand, recording every second while coolant hissed out of her crushed hood. And in that instant I knew she hadn't just wrecked her car. She had wrecked her reign. All the months of harassment, the petty wars, the threats from the so-called HOA president had just collided head-on with farm country reality. And I was about to watch her empire crumble. My name's Mark Danner, third-generation corn farmer. I've lived on this land in northern Indiana my whole life. 200-plus acres, my granddad carved out of dirt and sweat back in the 40s. It's not glamorous, it's not rich, but it's ours. My wife Emma teaches at the local school. Our kids chase each other through the barn. And every fall we live by the rhythm of harvest for decades. Life was steady. Then, 3 years back, a brand new development called Silverbrook Estates sprouted next door, selling city folks a slice of rural charm, and leading the charge was none other than Brenda Cross, HOA president, ex-HR director, 50, something with pearls around her neck and control issues in her blood. She didn't move out here to embrace farm life. She moved out here to tame it. And I just happened to be the unlucky target in her crosshairs. The first battle started with my access road. It's nothing fancy, just a dirt path carved into the earth 80 years ago so tractors can reach the back fields. Legal easement, written into deeds from 1944, wider than a semi. To us, it was as natural as the sunrise. To Brenda, it was an eyesore. She marched across one morning in her heels, clipboard in hand, nose wrinkled like she'd stepped in something foul. This ends today, Mr. Danner. Your machinery is destroying our community entrance. From now on, take the highway. I laughed, thinking she was joking. 4 miles out of the way. Traffic, choked. Dangerous for loaded trucks? No way. I told her flat out. My grandfather built this road before your subdivision was even a sketch on paper. I'm not changing roads. She leaned in close, eyes cold, and whispered, I have connections downtown. That was Brenda's favorite card to play, mystery power she didn't actually have. It didn't stop there. Soon she parked herself at the end of my road like some woman checkpoint. Folding chair, umbrella, digital camera clicking every time my tractor rolled by. She filed noise complaints at 5 a.m. when I fed livestock, reported toxic dust during dry afternoons, even accused my wife of having a conflict of interest because she taught kids while married to a problematic farmer. Letters came from the HOA demanding I cease incompatible agricultural operations. I'd sit in the barn at night staring at those papers, hands trembling, heart heavy. Emma would put a hand on my shoulder and whisper, Mark, this is harassment. We can't just let her bulldoze you. But deep down, I doubted myself. Maybe I was the intruder now. Maybe farms and subdivisions just couldn't coexist. I caught myself wondering if my grandfather would shake his head at how easily I was being cornered. For the first time, I thought about giving in. But then something hardened in me. I remembered Dad telling me when I was 15, Son, land rights don't die. They're like family names. You guard them. Because if you don't, no one else will. That night I decided I wasn't prey. I was a farmer, and farmers fight quiet and thorough. I drove to the county archives, breathing in dust and paper, digging through decades of records. Sure enough, my easement was 30 feet wide, I'd been using less than half of it out of courtesy. So I hired a surveyor. $300 to paint the truth in bright orange stakes. Watching Brenda's face twist when those markers sliced straight through her rose garden was worth every penny. For the first time, she looked rattled. She sputtered about harassment, emergency board meetings, legal audits. But the law was on my side, and she knew it. Still, people like her don't back down. They double down. The following weeks turned ugly. Noise inspectors showed up at dawn with clipboards, citing anonymous complaints. Brenda launched a Facebook group, posting dramatic photos of my fields with captions about chemical warfare. She plastered signs warning of toxic dust clouds, told neighbors to keep children indoors during harvest. Some of the new residents panicked. Others, the old timers, laughed her off. But me, I felt the weight. It wasn't just petty anymore. She was trying to turn my community against me. One morning, I poured coffee and stared at those posts, at the comments calling me a polluter, a danger. I almost believed it. For a moment, I thought about selling, cutting my losses, getting away. Then Emma looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Mark, she's building her power on your silence. You stop farming. She wins. You fight back. You show the truth. She loses." That was the turning point. So I turned my farm into a fortress of evidence. Security cameras on every angle, logs of tractor hours, weather reports tied to dust levels. I built a file thicker than a Bible, every complaint countered with proof. And I didn't stop there. A neighbor, Eleanor, retired accountant with a nose for numbers, knocked on my door with HOA financial records she'd requested, spread across my kitchen table. Those papers told a story. $30,000+ of HOA funds funneled into her husband's consulting company, supposedly to battle my farm, landscaping contracts to her nephew, car payments disguised as management fees, fraud, plain and simple. I realized then, Brenda wasn't just harassing me. She was robbing her own neighbors to do it. The more desperate she got, the dumber her moves became. She staged oil spills near my barn, scattering dead fish to fake contamination. My cameras caught her at 3 a.m., pouring motor oil like some eco-terrorist. Inspectors came out, took one look, and said, "This was staged." Federal charges whispered on the horizon. And still she pressed on. Anonymous letters to the school board to get Emma fired. Roadblocks with official looking cones. Health alerts taped on lampposts warning of agricultural poisoning. Every move I documented, every lie I stored. By then, I wasn't scared anymore. I was patient, because I knew she was digging her own grave. And all I had to do was hand her the shovel. Then came harvest week, crisp autumn air, fields golden, machines humming, the season farmers live for. And Brenda made her final stand. 6 a.m., my access road was blocked. Not cones, not chairs, her BMW, parked sideways like a barricade. She sat inside, phone in hand, live, streaming to her followers about protecting the community from agricultural terrorism. I walked up, gravel crunching under my boots, and told her calmly, "Ma'am, you're trespassing on my easement. Move your car." She cracked the window, smirked, and said, "I have authority to close this road." I dialed Deputy Allen, the county sheriff's deputy I'd been working with. He told me to sit tight. Minutes later, patrol cars rolled in, lights flashing. Allen ordered her to move or face arrest. And that's when she snapped. Instead of backing up, she slammed the gas and drove straight at my combine harvester parked nearby. The crunch was deafening. Luxury metal folding like paper against 40,000 pounds of farm steel. Steam hissed. Antifreeze pooled. Her live stream still running as she jumped out, screaming that I'd attacked her with machinery. But the cameras told the truth. 12 hours of footage showed that Harvester hadn't moved an inch. Her own video showed her hands gripping the wheel, accelerating. Alan shook his head. Read her rights, and called a tow truck. $40,000 of German engineering hauled away in pieces. Insurance wouldn't touch it. She'd been using it for unauthorized HOA business. Lease company wanted full payment. Neighbors laughed under their breath as she was cuffed and placed in the back of a cruiser. The next evening, the annual HOA meeting drew more residents than ever. Over 100 packed the community hall, buzzing with anger. Eleanor stood tall, spreading the evidence like a prosecutor. $35,000 embezzled. Contracts to family. HOA dues spent on vendettas. Murmurs turned into shouts. People demanded answers. Demanded her resignation. Demanded repayment. Then I plugged in my laptop. Projected 6 months of footage onto the screen, her pouring oil, planting fish, blocking roads, live streaming her BMW suicide mission. The room went silent except for her own shrill voice echoing from the speakers. By the time it ended, she was pale, trembling, muttering about conspiracies. And then the deputies walked in again, this time with federal warrants. Agricultural interference, environmental fraud, embezzlement, insurance fraud. She was led out in handcuffs. Neighbors watching as the woman who once ruled them with fear now shuffled out powerless, her pearls crooked, her hair undone. I didn't cheer, I didn't clap, I just sat there, arms crossed, watching the silence swallow her. Because that's the real victory. Not the shouting, not the celebration, but the quiet moment when the tyrant realizes the crowd no longer believes in her power. She had tried to bury me under paperwork, false charges, public humiliation. But in the end, it was her lies, her greed, her arrogance that crushed her. The same way her BMW crumpled against my Harvester when I walked out into the night. The air smelled of corn ready for cutting, of diesel fuel, of justice. I climbed back into my combine the next morning, fired up the engine, and rolled into the fields, the machine rumbling like a promise, because no matter how loud the HOA president screamed, the land spoke louder. And this time, the land and the law were on my side. The lesson I carried, and the one I'll leave you with, is simple. Document everything, stand your ground, and never let intimidation steal what generations built. Because, as we say here on HOA Drama Unfolded, sometimes the strongest justice comes from letting the bully destroy themselves.